Hey everyone, I've just finished editing this episode and I've made a number of references to 1 day events, single day events, and 2 day events. I figured it would make a lot more sense for me to clarify it here than to try and edit them all individually, as it would be quite messy. Basically, when I'm referring to a 1 day event and a 2 day event, it's referring to races where you register on the Saturday or the Friday, but essentially you have to register the day before. So I call that sort of a 2 day event. So you have your registration day, you have your race day. And those single day events, that is simply races where you turn up, you register, you rack, you race, and you go home on the same day. That's all there is to it. I'm not referring to races where somebody races 2 days, it's just events where it takes those 2 days. Anyway, enjoy the episode. Hello everybody, welcome to the Age Group Triathlon podcast. My name is Simon Olney, I'm a professional triathlon coach, and in this week's episode I'm going to be looking at race day logistics. Now, as far as subjects go, this is about as dry as it gets, I'm afraid. But that doesn't stop it from being incredibly important, because you can do all of the training, you can be the fittest person in the world, but if you make a mistake on race day, if you forget something, if you don't understand where it is you're supposed to be, what it is you're supposed to do, you can get to the start line and you can always be guaranteed that you're fair to finish. In fact, you might not even make it to the start line if you don't have what you need, if you're not where you need to be at the right time. And it's really, really complicated. I mean, a lot of you may be used to running events where, you turn up, you get to the start line, there's a bag drop, you run, and then you collect your bag at the end and you go home. Triathlon is a different kettle of fish. Now, your most important task, once you've entered the race and you're heading into race week, is to read the athlete guide. I cannot make this clear enough. There is lots of information in that guide that you need to know. You may look at, where is the race? Oh, the race is held at this lake, or the race is held in this town. And you'll stick the directions into the sat-nav of Race HQ and go, right, let's head to the race. But the chances are, especially if it's a closed road event, if it's a big event where the roads are closed, you're not going to be able to get there via normal roads. You're going to have to follow a specific route to get there into a specific place which isn't likely to be Race HQ. Most events, they have a car park, but often it can be up to a sort of a 10-15 minute walk away from Race HQ. So you really need to do your homework here. You really need to find out, where is it that I need to be? How is it that I need to get there? And how long is it going to take me to get to Race HQ from where I park the car? Because you have to factor all of this into your travel time, into your choice of accommodation, if applicable. You really need to find out the details of exactly where you need to be and when. It's not good enough to just drive in the general direction of Race HQ. And what I want to help with this episode is to stop people from finding themselves in a blind panic, because they didn't do their homework, they didn't know where they needed to be, they didn't know they needed to bring this item or had to be here by this certain time. There is a lot you need to be cognizant of when you are getting ready for a triathlon, especially on the race day itself. And this begins probably weeks out. Most races, they'll release the full athlete guide sort of a month or so, maybe less, ahead of an event. It may be a really glossy, downloadable guide with lots of sponsors, like you get from like big Ironman races. It could be that it's just a Word document. Whichever version it is, you need to read it. You need to understand exactly what is required of you, where you need to be, and when. Now, a big part of getting ready for a race is understanding when it is that you need to be at the venue. Now, I'm going to walk this back and I'm going to go, right, so if we are preparing for a big race, if it is a half Ironman, a full Ironman, even if it's a very large sort of Olympic or sprint event that you're having to travel some way for, when is it that we need or want to be there for? Now, I would always recommend, if you have this as being your big event, your A race of the year, the one event that this has all been working towards, you always, if possible, get there at least 1 day before. Sometimes 2 days, if you are heading to a World Championship event, if you're heading to an overseas Ironman. You want to give yourself as much time as possible to account for missing pieces of equipment, to account for issues with the accommodation. If you get there and your accommodation has been double booked, you really need to remove as many levels of stress as possible. If you are traveling up to an event and you get there on the sort of literally the day before the start and you arrive at your accommodation, around early evening, late evening, and then you realise that you've gotten a really important piece of equipment, or when your flight lands 24 hours before the race start, that your bike hasn't come off of the plane. Okay, you need to give yourself as much time to fix these problems as possible. Now, if you're driving, this is a lot simpler because you don't have to worry about luggage going walkabout. At larger events, there will often be more opportunities to buy things, maybe even rent things in certain cases. I mean, sourcing a new bike is always going to be challenging, but for instance, if you have flown out to a massive event, you realise you've forgotten your wetsuit, there will be a vendor that is selling wetsuits there, as an example. But you want to give yourself as much time as possible to overcome these logistical challenges. There's also a level of acclimation to the the unique climate. So if you're travelling somewhere that is especially humid or somewhere that's at altitude, you want to give your body as long as you can to prepare. Now, I know I talk to people who have, who've been to Kona. They say, we got there a week from the race to help us to acclimatise to the conditions, and that really helped. Now, I think this is especially challenging for those of you who are based over in the States. Over here we have, I think 6 weeks is the minimum of paid leave that we get. Over in the States, I think it's 2. I think in some positions, some industries, they don't even get any. I think it also depends on how long you've been with the company, and it's very messy. I understand that for some people, getting to an event a week before the start, that's just not an option, because that would use up 50% of their annual leave. They want to keep some in case they need to sort of dart off somewhere for a last minute emergency with families, whatever the reason. People don't want to waste that much leave on their event. And yeah, if it is a massive event, if it is somewhere that is a real altitude, or somewhere like Kona where the conditions are so alien relative to what most people would be training in, the longer the better. But for most people, if you are going to be traveling more than sort of 2 or 3 hours, I highly recommend getting there 2 days before rather than the day before. Because if you leave the day before an event, or even on the morning of an event, and your car doesn't start, or your train is cancelled because there's an obstruction on the tracks, if there is any issues last minute, then that can be it. That's it. Race over. There's no way of you being able to get there. Of course, that there can be options with taxis and that, depending on how far it is that you have to go, how many people but you can't afford to be leaving these things to chance. If you aim to get to a big race 2 days before the start, that gives you so much more wiggle room. It will leave you in a much more relaxed place, and you really, really don't need to be stressing in the run up to a race. Now, I'm going to use an example here of a client of mine who flew over to do Challenge Roth. And the airline that he flew with lost his luggage. His bike got there, but his tri-suit, his running shoes, his cycling shoes, all of the stuff that his clothes, all he had were the clothes on his back and his bike, everything went missing. But because he decided to get there 3 days out, he managed to source everything that he needed. Now, it didn't go perfectly to plan. The cleats that he got didn't actually work especially well with the pedals that he had, and there was an issue with them where they kept slipping, and he found that the cleats were too big for the pedals, and he actually found himself on race day on his hands and knees with his cycling shoe, trying to sand down his cleats using the tarmac from the roadside to help them fit into the pedals. I'm sure, I don't need to tell you that is not what you want to be doing ahead of a race that you've trained really hard for. Now, he managed to overcome these. He managed to source a new tri-suit. He managed to source some new running shoes. He managed to get this all because he got there with enough time to spare. Now, the more important a race is to you, the more critical this is. If it's, like it's another Olympic, oh, it's going to be like my 12th 70.3, then this becomes less of an issue. It depends how upset you'll be if you don't manage to start. But getting out there nice and early so you put yourself in control and you don't have a panic, super duper important. And you need to make sure when you're booking your hotel, when you're choosing your accommodation, assuming that you're staying over, you need to ensure that you are getting one that allows bikes. You need to ensure that you are booking one that will be able to sort you out with some kind of food or breakfast or have some other option in the area. If your race starts at 6:30 or even earlier in some cases, then some hotels may put on a special breakfast for, Ironman athletes or 70.3 athletes or athletes entering the big local race. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It depends on the chain, but you want to make sure that you have a plan for getting some food if your hotel doesn't. All of these things that, it's really easy to overlook. It's really easy to not really think about it. Go, this one's right close to the start. Let's book that one. You do have to really sort of think quite carefully about where it is that you're booking, how is it you can go about it. Now, if you are booking a hotel and you realise at the time of booking or afterwards they don't allow bikes, you can put your bike into a bike bag or a bike box and take that into your room without any problems. Speaking of bike boxes and the like, if you are flying with your bike, it's important that you pack your bike very carefully. You make sure that you add in extra padding, maybe bubble wrap around the frame would be my recommendation if you allow you to fit it in. You really want to make sure that you are protecting your bike. You can get two types of, there are three ways to transport your bike that I hear people talk about. The first is to stick it inside a big cardboard box with a bunch of sort of paper and bubble wrap and that in there. Sellotape it all down and hope for the best. I know some people who do that and they get away with it and they swear by that. They don't do anything else. I can't say I recommend that. But if somebody is really up against the wall, I guess it's an option. The second option is to get a soft bike bag. Now this is what I've got, and it is a bag which is large enough to fit a bike frame in once you remove the wheels, and there should be pockets on the inside of this for you to put the wheels in. This all zips up, and that would allow you to travel with it. Now, I don't really fly with my bike. I've not done an enormous amount of overseas races typically. It's something I want to do a bit more of, but a lot of the racing that I've done, I tend to do more races that are shorter, and I tend to do sort of a middle or a full distance every other year or something. But if I am travelling with my bike some distance, on going somewhere bikes aren't allowed, I pack it down into this soft bike bag, and if I wheel that into a hotel or wherever it is that I'm going, then that is going to make life an awful lot sort of easier, simpler for me. It's a better way to transport it. Even if you're taking it on the train, actually, it could be a better way to transport your bike. I travelled with my time trial bike up to Ironman UK in Bolton, and I took it on the train without a bag. And to be honest, if I had decided to bring the bag, that might have made my life a bit easier. If I even owned the bag at that point, I'm not sure. Now, the downside to the bike bag is it offers very little protection to your bike. So if it gets a real whack, the bike bag isn't going to do much to protect it. So people will instead go for, those who fly a lot, they'll go for a bike box. And this is a hard shell box that you break your bike down into. It's a bit of a dark art to get them into these boxes, but it can be managed. You need to sort of lower the saddle all the way down. Make sure you mark the saddle height before you lower it down. You'll have to loosen the bolts on the headset, twist it 90 degrees. You may have to take a few bits apart. You often have to take the through axle or quick release off of the wheel and then run it through the outside of the box. It can be a bit convoluted, but there are videos online that will show you how to do it. The benefit of these, actually, is that if the bike gets a knock, it's much better protected. The downside of these is that because it's this big hard shell, a lot of baggage handlers at airports, they'll just toss them about. They'll just launch them. Whereas if something is in a canvas bag, they're probably going to take a bit more care with it. Given the choice, I think I'd probably go for the bike box just for the added protection over the bike bag, because you're trusting that the bike handlers even care that something in a canvas bag could be delicate, which there's a good chance that they won't. Whichever sort of way of transporting, flying with your bike that you use, once you land, when you are in the baggage reclaim, open up your bike bag or your bike box before you leave the baggage reclaim and check your bike for damage. Now, it helps if you take photos of your bike as you're bagging it up, as you're boxing it up, to demonstrate the state it was in before you flew with it. Because if you open up that bike box and you find that your frame is cracked or sheared due to an impact when either in transit or when it's been loaded or anything like that, if you then phone up the airline from your hotel room and go, I've just opened my bike box and my bike is smashed up, you guys must have broken it, they're going to go, well, prove it. You know, how it could be that you broke it on the way to the hotel. Whereas if you open that box in the baggage reclaim and you have evidence, you took photos of the bike in days previous, you can talk to a representative of the airline and go, you broke my bike and you need to replace it. You need to sort out a replacement. Well, sorting out a replacement may not be their responsibility, but you need them to cover the cost of that bike. So always make sure that you do that in the baggage reclaim, just to strengthen your hand, just to make sure that there is no chance of them turning around and going, it's not a problem. You know, you can't prove it was us. As soon as you are checked in, and assuming that registration is open, which it normally is in the days before, Ironman events, they often open up on the Thursday afternoon. You want to go and get yourself registered ASAP. Get down there, get your race number, get your wristband, get all of that. Make sure that you are entered into that race. Because if you miss registration, you can't race. It's as simple as that. And especially if registration is a little bit of a trip for you, you need to ensure that you are arriving at that registration with ample time to be able to get everything that you need and to be able to troubleshoot any problems that arise. You're going to need to bring your photo ID. And again, if you forgot your photo ID with you, then the sooner you get there, the sooner you can get around this. It could be that you can find that you have a sort of a scan of your passport on your phone. Ask them to see if they'll accept that. They might not. I think it depends on the race and the individual. But you will need to ensure that you are providing them with some kind of identification. You will then collect the materials that you'll be given, and I'm going to go through these now, which are going to vary from race to race. Now, the first and most important thing that you'll need to sort out is your timing chip. Now, this timing chip will be it will be given to you at registration at most events. At Ironman events, it will actually be given to you in T1 or just transition, when it is that you go and you drop your bike off. But your timing chip, if you don't have that timing chip, you can't start your race. And it's also when you arrive on race day, it's a good way for them sort of to identify competitors as well. You'll put that timing chip, actually it needs to go on your left ankle, the non-drive side of your bike, to avoid it from catching your chain or your pedals as you're going along. Once you've got your timing chip on, assuming that this is race morning itself, you're also going to have a wristband. The wristband will often be applied to you by a member of the registration team to make sure that it's only athletes who are getting these wristbands. These wristbands will entitle you to enter certain areas such as transition and identify you as a competitor. If you are racing an official Ironman event, the full distance, you can also opt in at many events to get a little silicone band that has "Become One" written on it, which signifies you as being a first timer, which might get you a little bit of help in certain cases, or get you an extra loud cheer on the course. If you're offered one of these, sure, why not? But alongside the timing chip, alongside the wristband, you'll also get your race number. Now you'll need to check the exact rulings for different parts of the world. But in the UK at least, you have to have your race number on the front when you are running and facing behind you when you are cycling. This is to allow marshals to be able to spot and identify you out on the course, as well as photographers. You'll also probably be given some stickers. These stickers will go on your bike. These stickers will go on your helmet. And they may give you some others which go, or you may give you sort of an extra sticker for your bike seat post and one on the side. It could be that you have a sticker that goes on a bag that gets put into a bag drop. I'm not sure exactly, it depends entirely on race to race, what it is. You can also get some stickers that say, I'm supporting, and then the race number, which you can give to your family for a little bit of fun sometimes. But these stickers, these are your keys to your bike and your transition. Now, when you head over and chat to the volunteer working on transition, they're going to check that your number is on your bike, and that the number on your bike matches the number that is on your helmet, because this identifies that as being your bike. This what we want to avoid is we want to avoid people from walking out of transition with bikes that aren't theirs. Okay, this is to reduce theft primarily, and to make it a lot harder for people to wander off with stuff that isn't theirs. There may be other items that are included in your race packet, depending on the event that you're doing. All of this information here. Obviously read the athlete's guide, chat to the volunteers, understand what it is that you need to do, because failure to adhere to these rules may end up in you being unable to start your event. If you're competing in an official Ironman or Ironman 70.3 event, at registration you'll also be given a white bag, which is for all of your what they call streetwear. So this is clothing that you'll be wearing after the event, your blue bag where you put all your bike kit, and your red bag that you put all your run kit in. You'll also be given special needs bags if you requested them, which I highly recommend that you do, especially at your first event, if you're doing a full distance. And you need to then go in and you need to fill these bags up. And you need to put in everything into these bags that you think that you might need on the day. So this is going to include all of the essentials. So in your bike bag, you're going to need your helmet. You're going to need to add in sort of any nutrition that you're hoping to have on the bike. It could be that you have some extra layers that you might want to use. It could be that you have eyewear. It could be that you have some sunscreen, whatever you call it. Anything that you think that you might want or need on the bike needs to go into that blue bag. And the red bag is going to be everything you need for the run, which is going to be your running shoes. Primarily, it may be that you're wearing a visor or a hat on the run. Maybe you want to have some special nutrition to access in T2. Whatever it is that you want, these need to go into these bags. And the special needs bags, you access these once a lap on each course. And that's going to, how often you access them is going to depend on the event. On the run course, it's generally 4 laps, and once a lap you can access this. And if it's the bike, they tend to be 2 or 3 laps, and you get to access that bag every lap. And this can be, you can put in bottles of your favourite pre-mixed nutrition in bottles. You can have some slightly left field nutrition, something like a cold pizza slice or a pork pie. If you're going to be out there for some time and you think something like that's going to help settle your stomach, whatever it is that you want, stick it in those special needs bags. And then you take your blue bag, and when you drop your bike off at T1, you then rack your blue bag on your hook. Now, I recommend you double, triple, quadruple check that your race number, the correct race number, is on your bag and it's hanging on the correct hook. Now, if it's a split transition, you'll then need to drive to or blag a lift like I did to T2, where you'll then hang up your red bag. But if it is an all-in-one transition, then there'll simply be a separate area for T2. Now, if you are not competing at an Ironman event, so this could be any distance triathlon that is not run by the company Ironman, check-in's transition is going to be different because you're not going to have bags. You're going to approach the transition area and you're going to want your timing chip on. You're going to want your helmet on and done up with the sticker on it. And you're going to want to make sure that you have a wristband on if applicable. Okay, this is your ticket into transition. The volunteer at transition will check that everything's as it should be, and they'll wave you through into your transition area. Now in Ironman, all of your gear is kept in these blue and these red bags. At most other events, or all the other events that I've been to at least, you don't have that other events, you simply make your own little transition area. Now, I like it when events set up numbers on the racking so that you have a designated space for your bike. So that you can rack your bike and you know that you then have that area surrounding you. It can be the Wild West a little bit at some events when they don't have numbered racking, as everybody sort of crowds around to try and get the most opportune piece of racking. Once you set your bike up, you then need to put everything that you're going to need down onto the in front of your bike or underneath your bike to help prepare you, for the start of the bike and the start of the run. So that is going to be your bike shoes, which you may want to have on your bike if you're doing a flying start. It's going to be your run shoes. It's going to be your race belt with your race number on there. It's going to be any nutrition, everything that you think that you might need. Helmet as well is going to either be on your bike or on the floor in front of it. You need to set this up in a way that makes sense. And I recommend that you set your bike up in a way that you have to be a real tool to forget something important, such as your race belt, your race number. Put that inside your helmet, so you cannot physically put your helmet on without removing your race belt and putting it on, as an example. Now, how you do this is up to you. There are lots of different ways of going about this. Something I will point out is that British Triathlon have changed their rules in 2026, where you can no longer put a coloured towel down. To signify your transition area. If you want to use a towel, it has to be folded up underneath your bike or inside a bag or your shoes or something like that. The days of using a small coloured towel on the floor to make your bike slightly easier to spot are gone, unfortunately, because that was one of my favourite tricks. Once you're all racked, you now need to focus on where is it that I need to go. So where is the swim start? Once I come out of the water, well, where do I come out of the water and how do I then get to my bike? Once I've got my bike, which direction do I go with it? And when I finish the bike, where do I enter? And where, from the point of re-entry into transition, where do I go to rack my bike and where do I run? Where is the run out? Walk these through. Now, I recommend that you, if possible, you go down to the swim exit. And you walk along, because chances are the carpet will be down a couple of days before. You walk along up towards transition and you stand at the entry to transition and you look at where your bike is. Or in the case of Ironman, you head into the marquee and look at where your blue bag is. You want to make sure that it is second nature where it is that you need to go. So my bike is on the third rack back and it's about 2/3 of the way down. These are the kinds of things that are really important for you to know and to memorise. You then practice walking up to either your bag or your bike, and then from there you will then practice, right, where is it that I need to go with my bike, or in the case of Ironman, where is it that I go from the changing marquee or the changing area over to my bike. And these things, they need to be really well oiled. You can't afford to stand there on race day like, where's my bike? Oh God, where is it? Or end up on the wrong bit of racking. On the wrong row, as it were. I've made that mistake before, but when I didn't really pay attention to what it was that I was doing, because when you come out the swim, your head is swimming a little bit. You're quite stressed, you're quite anxious. At this point, your heart rate's really high, and the ability to make these decisions is limited. But if it's second nature where it is that you're going, that's going to help. Practice heading to the bike out and then head over to where the bike in is and then walk from there over to where your bike is to help you get an idea of where it is that you need to go. These are the kinds of things where if you can make sure that you have all of this down, it can save you, probably a minute or more on race day itself and a lot of stress and potentially getting lost, missing things. Yeah, it can be a real nightmare. So at this point, I'm going to assume that you're doing a 2-day event. I'm sure that you're able to work this out and fill in the blanks in your mind if you're only doing a 1-day event. But if you're doing a 2-day event, once you have your bike in position, once you have all of your gear, actually on the subject of bikes in transition, Something I saw people discussing the other day is about lowering tyre pressures if you're leaving your bike overnight, as well as, how it is that you cover your bike, you can protect your bike and the like. So if you're leaving your bike overnight, a number of people, they will take air out of their tyres. The reason being is that tyres left in the heat are going to expand and run the risk of exploding. Well, the inner tubes basically. Now, if you are running tubeless, this isn't something you really need to worry about. And if you are running inner tubes at a sensible pressure, so say if your tyre is rated up to 120 psi and you're running them at say 80, then you don't need, or 90 even, you probably don't need to worry about this too much because you have 30 psi wiggle room. Whereas if you are somebody who is running their tyres towards the top end of things, you might want to take 10, 15 psi out of those tyres just to prevent the possibility of arriving at your bike the next day on race morning and finding you've got two completely flat tyres. It's very rare, but it has been known to happen at certain events where it is just really, really hot. And also some people, they will cover their bike with like a bin bag or something like that. Most race organisers, they will remove these if you try to add any coverings to your bike because it catches the wind and the bikes can blow around a lot. These transition areas, they are guarded by 24/7 security. So you can sleep relatively soundly at night, knowing that someone is there physically keeping an eye on your bikes. In fact, hopefully a team of people are there physically keeping an eye on your bikes. So race morning itself, all your calculations need to be made in reverse. So what time does your race start? Let's keep the maths early. Let's say 6 a.m. because that's a nice simple round number for me to work with. And in the summer, this isn't an abhorrent time for you to be sort of starting a race, because the race organisers, they want to make sure that their cyclists are off the road nice and early, because their permit may only run until sort of one. If it's at half distance, they may only have a permit until sort of 1 p.m, 12 noon, something like that. They want to get all the bikes off the road as soon as possible, and the sooner they start the race, the sooner the bikes are off the road. So if your race starts at 6, you want to get there at 5 at the absolute latest. Now you may think, well, what am I going to do for half an hour? Stand around. There's a few things that you need to do once you get there, even if you have, if your bike is already racked. Now, if you are doing a one-day event and your bike is nothing is ready for you, you're literally going to be rolling up with all your gear in the car, then you might need to allow a bit more than an hour. But even if everything is prepared the day before, at least 1 hour is what you need. Because you need to allow for issues. So a lot of larger events, they put on a shuttle bus from the town centre, and everybody's going to travel on the shuttle bus to the start. If the shuttle buses, they're all full, if there's an issue, you need to allow yourself stress. You need to allow yourself wiggle room for that. When you arrive at the race venue, you're going to want to go to your bike. You're going to want to put onto the bike any sort of bottles of water that you didn't leave overnight. You're going to want to check your tyre pressures, pump them up if you let air out of them last night. You're going to want to make sure that you're in your kit. Now, I recommend that you get changed before you leave your hotel room, because there are no changing rooms at triathlons. So I'm yet to do a triathlon, except a pool-based triathlon, where there are changing facilities, and you probably don't want to get changed in a portaloo. It's just not very dignified. But we need to allow time to head from the car park to the race venue, time to maybe sort of have something to eat, time to get something to drink, to make your way down to the swim start, check everything in transition, because time just evaporates on race morning. I couldn't tell you. I don't know where it goes. It just disappears. One thing you know, you've got there super early. The next thing you know, you're rushing around trying to make it to the swim start in time. Something which you do need to allow a lot of time for is using the toilets. Now, I recommend every human being who is doing a triathlon has a nervous poo before. Because if you don't, chances are you're going to need one partway through the swim. or when you're on the bike. So take the opportunity to empty your bowels before the start of the event, okay? And allow the time for this, because the queues can be long. They really can be long. Ahead of the event, that in that kind of 20-30 minutes ahead of the event, there are going to be long queues for the toilets. So make sure you budget time for this, because you don't want to start the race feeling uncomfortable. 70.3 Staffordshire, a few years ago, I made this mistake. I left it too late to queue up, and by the time that I'd finished in the toilet, the race was already well underway. There was no way for me to join the corral, for the self-seeding corral where I needed to be, so I had to line up around with the 1 hour 10 swimmers right at the back, which meant that I was on my feet for a lot longer than I wanted to be, and I started my race right at the back of the pack and had to cut through quite a busy swim full of people. So learn from my mistake, okay? Always make sure that you head for, heading to the toilet as soon as you get there is a pretty good way to do things. And I've definitely had a few moments, even at the last race that I did, when I was sat there on the Portaloo and I could hear over the loudspeaker they're announcing that the race briefing for my wave was beginning now. I miscalculated it, I didn't get it right. Now, you need to make sure, with regards to equipment, make sure that you write out a list of what you need. Rather than focusing on a list of stuff that you need for a triathlon, I did think about reading out a kit list here, but I thought that'd be kind of pointless because nobody's going to sit here listening to me reel off this list with a notebook and a check pad. You need to decide what it is that you need. Maybe start with a generic one that you find online, but add to it any bits that you know that you personally need to take. Your individual nutrition, anything such as earplugs that you're looking to use specifically that others may not. Create this list and tick it off as you're loading the car. Because if you forget something such as your goggles or your wetsuit or your bike shoes or your helmet, you're in a lot of trouble. Now, if you get to a really big event and you realise that you've lost your equipment, or forgotten the equipment, I should say, then most events, they will have vendors that will be selling essentials such as helmets, goggles, race belts, all of these. A race belt, actually, I know I referenced this earlier. It is essential for most races because you're going to loop your number through it. So it will have some tassels and there will be some holes in the race number. You feed the tassels through the holes and there will be some stoppers, some sort of spring-loaded stoppers that you use to pin your race number in place. And this allows you to be able to run around with your race number nice and easy. It is a race day essential. I do recommend that you buy one if you're looking to do an event. But it is one of the things that is easily forgotten because you think, okay, what do I need for the bike? I need my helmet, I need my eyewear, I need my punch repair kit, I need this, and you end up forgetting the race belt. It's a simple mistake to make. Now, you should be able to buy one on race day. There should be somewhere selling one, same with goggles, but just do everything that you can to avoid finding yourself in that situation where you go, hang on a minute, I haven't got what it is that I need. For some really big events, the race briefing, in days gone by, they'd have it in like a big town hall or something like that, and they'd have a few that you could drop into throughout the day before. Whereas these days, these race briefings, they tend to be delivered online, they tend to be videos that are uploaded. You never know too much. You've never been in the sport long enough to miss the race briefing. Yes, I know there will be a bunch of stuff there. Yes, I know that. I've done 20 Ironman events. I know how transition works. I know how that works. I know I need to be here for this time. There's always going to be information. It could be that the bike course has changed. It could be that there is a bit of guidance with a weather warning. It could be that they are looking to share some information such as, the right-hand side of the swim course, there's a lot more weeds than normal this year, so stay to the left. There could be any, number of bits of information. And if you ignore these, you could find yourself on race day of getting really frustrated. Oh God, why is this here? Why didn't anyone let me know that this was a problem or this wasn't going to be here? Because it's always been like this in other years. You could move an aid station, for instance, and that could really change your nutrition plans. You need to ensure that you are attending that race briefing and that you're listening and paying attention, no matter how experienced an athlete you are. Now, if your race briefing is before your event, you'll probably need to get to the briefing 15 minutes before the actual start of the event. So between the time of you arriving, walking onto the race venue, and being there in your kit, in your wetsuit, in your swim gear, listening to the race briefing, you've only got 45 minutes. That's not actually a lot of time to get there, to get all your equipment, to get into transition, set everything up, queue up for the toilet. This time will disappear. So I do say now is a bare minimum, because I do mean bare minimum. I recommend, if you can, you get there that bit earlier. Now, if we go back to our timing, so we think, well, if our race starts at 6 a.m. and I need to be there for 5 a.m., then I probably need to, again, depending on lots of factors such as how close you are to the venue, shuttle buses and the like, you may go, okay, well, I probably need to be leaving my accommodation at around 4. So does that mean like a 3:30 alarm call to make sure that like I'm up, dressed and awake and ready to go? Yeah, it might. And I know it's very stressful, the idea of, oh, hang on a bit, I need to get like every second of sleep that I can. Yes, you do. But I highly recommend, rather than flirting with danger and running the risk of not being able to make the event, that you do just wake up that kind of 10-15 minutes earlier, give yourself a bit of leeway, rather than say, well, I only need half an hour there, it only takes 20 minutes to get there, so I can afford to set my alarm for 4:45 and still be there for the 6 a.m. start. You're cutting that so fine, and you do run the risk of finding yourself in a lot of trouble if you don't manage to make it there in time. In fact, you might even be able to start the race, and then all of that money you spent, all of the time you spent training, will be for nothing. It's not a thought that's really worth entertaining, is it? Once the race briefing is over, it's time for you to do your thing. And this is where all of your training, all your fitness comes to the fore. But I'm sure you can appreciate that in the day or the days running up to this, there are a huge amount of things that can go wrong that can stop you from actually being able to participate. If you have my app, which there's a link down in the comments, or not the comments, the show notes, or you can simply search for Phazon Triathlon, Phazon, Phazon Triathlon in the App Store, it will come up. You can download my Triathlon Race Day Guide, then get my Ironman Race Day Guide and my Triathlon Race Day Guide that talk you through all the considerations for both types of triathlon for only 99p. And that is going to talk you through what I've covered just now, as well as the swim, the bike, the run, how it is that you can actually execute your race. Okay, so I'm gonna go through all of that, because I don't have time to go through all of that. That is available on my app, and I'm going to jump over to what happens when you cross that finish line. So you cross the finish line, and you will still hopefully have your timing chip, and you will then have your timing chip removed by a volunteer. This will either be at the finish line or as you exit transition, depending on the race. If you lose your timing chip or you wander off without handing it in, you will be sent a bill by the timing company, and those chips, they're not cheap. They're not cheap, because it was given to you under your care and you lost it. So do make sure that you have that. Do make sure that you that you give them your timing chip. And if you have made the mistake that I did, I did a race a few years ago, and I left my timing chip in my car. They gave me a replacement chip, and I made sure I got a chip out of my car. Gave them both chips to make sure that I wouldn't end up getting billed for either of those. And you will then make your sort of slightly sweaty, slow way over to your transition area, where you just need to flash your wristband to be let in, and you will then collect your bike. Now, depending on how fast you are, depending on the event, depending on all sorts of factors, this might be a live transition area. Okay? You cannot be there on your phone, taking selfies, posing with friends when people are arriving off of the bike and trying to start the run course, okay? You will actually become disqualified by the race referee if you engage in that sort of behaviour. Phones themselves are actually banned in transition areas, because if you're looking at your phone, you're not focusing on what it is that you're doing. Now, if you are simply crouched down at your bike and you pull your bag out of your phone out of your bag and you send your partner a text to tell them that you finished safely and you'll be on your way, that's one thing. But standing around, taking photos, browsing Facebook, updating your Snapchat with your race day photos, that's not for transition. It's there. You need to head there. You need to be aware of your surroundings. No headphones in transition either, for that matter. We're not. We can't be listening to Queen to hype ourselves before our race. We need to be aware of what's going on around us. You'll be collecting all of your gear, and as you go to take your bike out of transition, then you will have a volunteer that's going to be checking your bike. The sticker on your bike against your race number to make sure that it is your bike that you're leaving with. You didn't just grab somebody else's bike that was worth 10 times what yours was. And then you will be making your way back to the car. Now, if it's a closed road event, then it may take a lot of time to actually get to the car. There'll be crossing points, quite likely, where you need to cross the live race course. And as you're leaving in your car, assuming that you drove, then it may take some time to allow you to actually be able to find a way to get round, because the road that you use to get there may actually be closed due to the race now being on. So you do need to allow for this when you are arranging, sort of letting people know what time you're back or where you're going to meet them afterwards. So there we have it. That is a nice insight into the mechanics of race day, how the logistics work of the days before, travelling there, setting up transition, the morning of. It's quite a complex subject. It's more complex than it has any right to be, but it is essential if you want to ensure that you are able to complete your event without any interruptions. Now, if you want my full race day guide, again, for both Ironman and the standard distance 99p on my app, the link is down in the show notes. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Hope you found that useful. I hope that if you are getting ready for your first event this summer, that is really going to help you ensure that you have everything in place to make sure that you're able to start your race and to be successful at your race, and that your limiter is going to be your fitness rather than your equipment or anything like that. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all very soon.